August 26, 1981, North Korea. The communist regime of Kim Il-sung is flexing its military muscles. Fearing an invasion of the democratic South, the West desperately needs intelligence.
We had to understand what is happening with the North Korean order of battle. What is their intention? Where are their forces? What are they up to? What are they doing? And there was only one system that could furnish that information, and it was the SR-71.
17 years after its first flight.
The Korean peninsula remains on high alert tonight as the region weighs up the implications of Kim Jong-il's death. North Korea has named his inexperienced son, Kim Jong-un, as the Hermit Kingdom's great successor. But there are concerns that change of leadership could lead to political instability and spark conflict with the South. This report from Stephen McDonnell, who's in the South Korean capital.
Now to a big headline overseas. Reports that the North Korean leader's half-brother was killed in a planned attack. ABC's Matt Gutman joins us now from London with the latest. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Michael. We've just learned that investigators in Malaysia have arrested a suspected female secret agent in this James Bond-style hit right in the middle of a busy airport. At least one, possibly two female assassins using a fast-acting poison to kill the former heir apparent to the North Korean regime.
This morning, a suspected female assassin arrested in the brazen poisoning of the heavyset half-brother of North Korea's dictator, Kim Jong-un. Police saying CCTV led them to the femme fatale, a 28-year-old Vietnamese woman local media say is this person in that LOL t-shirt. Police say she was alone at the time of the arrest. Malaysian police adding a 46-year-old North Korean male who sought initial medical assistance at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport died en route to the hospital. It was Kim Jong-nam, the half-brother of North Korean despot Kim Jong-un. Kim awaiting a flight to his home in China when a woman came from behind and covered his face with a cloth laced with a liquid. Police say Kim Jong-nam complained of burning in his eyes. He was rushed to the airport clinic. Dizziness quickly led to death, the poison killing him before he reached the hospital. Kim Jong-nam was reportedly the eldest son of the former North Korean dictator Kim Jong-il. That's them side by side in this awkward family photo from 1981. South Korean government officials believe Kim was traveling on a false passport. It wasn't the first time he traveled on a fake document. Kim Jong-nam came to global attention when he was detained using another fake passport to enter Japan to visit Disneyland Tokyo.
Now, we've learned an autopsy is being conducted on Kim. Discovering the type of poison used could tell investigators who commissioned this hit. Right now, evidence pointing to North Korea. Analysts tell us this latest assassination isn't a sign of regime instability there. They say it's just unfinished business in a regime that operates most like a mafia family.
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
North Korean television is showing image after image of people wailing in the streets. The passing of leader Kim Jong-il has left the entire country, it seems, barely able to control themselves. Even in death, the so-called dear leader is being managed by the propaganda machine. This is apparently the last photo of Kim Jong-il alive. A special broadcast declared that foreign delegations would not be present at Kim Jong-il's main funeral ceremony.
North Korea claims it has successfully tested a hydrogen bomb, a device which can be loaded onto a long-range ballistic missile. There's no independent verification of that claim. South Korea and Japan say it was a nuclear test 10 times more powerful than the previous attempt by Pyongyang.
조선민주주의인민공화국 핵무기연구소 상명.
A jubilant newsreader on state TV announced that the bomb test had been a complete success. The device was of unprecedentedly large power, she said. The news came just hours after state media published this photograph of Kim Jong-un apparently inspecting such a device. The test comes against a backdrop of heightened tension in the region following multiple missile launches by North Korea, the last one conducted less than a week ago. Earlier, seismologists detected a powerful tremor measuring 6.3 near the North's main testing site at Punggye. Well, let's talk now to Lassina Zerbo from the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization. Good morning to you. What do you see as the significance of this?
Good morning. I think at 3:30 this morning, as you mentioned, our international monitoring system of station detected a significant event much larger than the previous announced and declared DPRK test. And this is clearly an indication that the program is going increasingly serious and that the international community needs to come up pretty soon with a solution.
Increasingly serious, and it's going at some speed, you would say.
Indeed, because we move since 2006, that's now the 6th test, all detected by our international monitoring system, but this one is obviously much larger than the previous ones.
One of the questions here is whether or not what has been tested today, and they're talking about a hydrogen bomb, could be in some way linked to a long-range missile. Are you clear on that in your mind?
Look, I think what I would say is that whether it's a hydrogen bomb or not, what is evident today is that their program is increasingly getting serious in terms of their ability to master the technology of having a nuclear bomb. So we're not speculating at this moment whether it's a hydrogen bomb or not, because our role is to indeed to come with concise specification, technical specification for our member state, and this is what we're doing. And then
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm John Berman.
And I'm Poppy Harlow. Insults and threats flying back and forth between the U.S. leader and the North Korean dictator. This morning, President Trump throwing the latest punch. Just a few hours ago, he wrote, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, who is obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his own people, will be tested like never before.
This warning came just hours after Kim lashed out at the president, calling him a mentally deranged person, saying he would pay dearly for his UN speech, and then sent everyone racing to their dictionaries, calling the president a dotard. But even more significant, North Korea now threatening that it may test a hydrogen bomb on or over the Pacific Ocean. Let's start with that. Joining us now at the Pentagon, CNN's Barbara Starr, and here in New York, CNN global affairs analyst Elise Lavin. Barbara, first to you, a hydrogen bomb test on or over the Pacific. That seems like an extremely provocative move.
Very provocative. Good morning to both of you. And the question, of course, is what would the U.S. do about it? Could the Trump administration, could the Pentagon even detect a test like that before it happens? If Kim was to put a hydrogen bomb warhead on a missile and launch it, it is possible, officials tell us, they would not know that that warhead was essentially a hydrogen bomb. So there's a lot of concern about what Kim is threatening, what he is doing. This threat coming from the North Korean foreign minister saying there might be a hydrogen bomb test on or over the Pacific. This after all of this exchange of rhetoric between both leaders, and Kim Jong-un firing his own rhetorical shots in language perhaps only he can use. And let me just read some of what he had to say to everyone. Kim saying he, President Trump, is unfit to hold the prerogative of supreme command of a country, and he is surely a rogue and a gangster, fond of playing with fire rather than a politician. I will make the man holding the prerogative of the supreme command in the U.S. pay dearly for his speech calling for totally destroying the DPRK, North Korea. Whatever Trump might have expected, he will face results beyond his expectation. I will surely and definitely tame the mentally deranged U.S. dotard with fire. Behind the scenes, what U.S. officials will tell you is Kim, as always, bound and determined to keep himself and his regime in place, and that is what is driving him now. John, Poppy.
So, Elise, a few notable things. One, this is believed to be the first time that this was a direct sort of statement, not just from the North Korean state news agency, but from Kim Jong-un. I'm interested in what you think the significance is of that. And then this also comes on the heels of the president at that photo op yesterday in the UN General Assembly meetings saying, when asked, is dialogue still possible with North Korea, he said, why not?
That's right. I mean, look, that is the first time that Kim Jong-un ever saw a statement coming from him. Usually statements are kind of talking about the dear leader, if you will. And I thought it was really extraordinary. It shows that President Trump is getting in his head and that this rhetoric is becoming personal between the two men. And I don't know whether that, I think it's much more rhetoric. I mean, surely the president shouldn't be talking about testing Kim Jong-un because you don't want to test. You want things to de-escalate. And surely Kim Jong-un is not going to, tame the U.S. leader. So I think it's getting a little hyperbole at this point. But certainly it's obviously becoming personal between these two leaders. I think they've met their match in terms of brinksmanship.
Yeah. Well, certainly in terms of the thesaurus. Let's bring in our military analyst, Cedric Layton, a retired lieutenant colonel. Cedric, if you can hear me right now, it's interesting. Elise said just rhetoric, but this rhetoric has an impact when you're talking about figuring out how to deal with this nuclear situation. Does it limit your options? If the president is calling the North Korean leader a madman, and the North Korean leader is calling the president a frightened dog, does that limit the number of things they can do to find a solution?
I think it does diplomatically, John, and I think that one of the key things here is that this rhetoric does paint both sides into a bit of a corner, because what you're looking at is you're looking at a way in which these folks are going to the brink in terms of the rhetoric. They're ratcheting things up basically beyond a 10 at this point when they're talking about each other and theoretically to each other, but they're doing it, of course, through public media, and they're doing it in a way that clearly shows that they want to get inside each other's heads. They want to actually probably develop something that allows them to work political positions for their own domestic consumption, and both have domestic constituencies. So that is something that I think is really serious in this case, because I think it increases the risk of a miscalculation, and that to me is the most dangerous part.
So Barbara Starr at the Pentagon, what predicament, situation, position does all of this rhetoric back and forth put General Mattis in?
Well, Defense Secretary Mattis is very much verbally, at least, focusing on diplomacy and saying that the State Department really will continue to lead on the diplomatic front, on the sanctions front that we've seen with the Treasury Department. Mattis has long said that conflict with North Korea would be a disaster, a catastrophe the likes of which the world hasn't seen in decades. That does not mean that there are not military options, that as they see this rhetoric, they continue to recalibrate the military options. But the big problem remains. How could you get in and out, you know, whether it's U.S. missiles, U.S. aircraft, how could you get the U.S. military to conduct strikes inside North Korea faster and get out faster than they could launch a counterattack against South Korea? That remains one of the key issues, one of the key problems to which, by all accounts, there's no easy answer. And the fundamental problem right now is nobody really knows what element of any of this rhetoric would in fact set Kim off on a military path.
And Elise Lavin, on top of North Korea, the U.S. dealing with Iran right now. Iran showcasing a new long-range ICBM. Very proud of this missile. Not part of the nuclear agreement per se, but clearly trying to sort of thumb their nose publicly at the United States right now.
Well, and that's what the United States, the Trump administration, has been saying, that this nuclear deal did not address those other threats, the missile threat, the terrorism, the support for terrorism, the human rights, and they're trying to deal with this in a total comprehensive context. And so when you have these decisions that President Trump has to make about the nuclear deal, they're looking at the whole panoply of issues related to Iran. Their allies are saying, listen, you need to deal with Iran is technically in compliance of the nuclear threat, and you need to separate the two. And so you kind of have a little bit of a showdown between the U.S. and the Europeans and Russia and China who are working on this deal together.
Colonel, the question has been asked of a number of people around the president in his cabinet, but I'll ask you this as well. Does it complicate things for the United States on a diplomatic front with North Korea that the president is threatening to pull the U.S. or not to certify the Iran nuclear agreement in less than a month?
Right. I think it does, Poppy, and the reason that it complicates things is that it actually involves a degree of uncertainty. It introduces this element of uncertainty into the diplomatic as well as the political processes in all of the countries involved. And North Korea is watching what is going on with Iran. They see that there was an agreement. They believe that in many ways this agreement was a sign of weakness on the part of Iran as well, because it limits Iran's ability to do things from a nuclear standpoint. So because of that, they think that that reduces Iran's independence. North Korea doesn't want to have its independence reduced at all.
No, clearly not. Now threatening testing a hydrogen bomb on the Pacific. Surely not wanting its independence tested. All right, Cedric Layton, Barbara Starr, Elise Lavin, thanks so much for being with us.
You bet.
Other major stories.